Welcome to Global Gardens. You'll be spending your time with us learning about science, cooking, doing art, and exploring our world. But before we begin, let's start with Community Circle. During Community Circle, we breathe in all the things that we want to hold on to that make us feel good, and we want to breathe out the things that are weighing heavy on us, the things that we don't want to hold on to. So take a minute to think about what those things might be. Okay, let's take 5 deep breaths together. You can count with me. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out.
In our state of Oklahoma, we experience 4 different seasons. There's summer that begins on June 21st, and fall on September 21st, and then winter on December 21st, and finally spring on March 21st.
So why do we have such different weather during our 4 seasons? It has to do with the earth and the sun. The earth and the sun are doing a little dance.
The earth is making a circular dance around the sun. Look at the earth at the bottom of this picture. This is where the earth is during fall. Then it follows the green arrow during October, November, and December until it arrives in the spot on the right side of the sun. Now it's winter. Then it follows the green arrows again during the months of January, February, and March until it reaches the position above the sun. That's spring. Then it follows the arrow again during the months of April, May, and June to reach the left side of the picture. Now it's summer. Lastly, it follows the green arrow during the months of July, August, and back to September, returning to the season of fall at the bottom of the picture. Whew! That was quite a dizzying dance. How long did it take the earth to make this one circle around the sun?
Do you know? If it started in September and went all the way around to October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, and back to September, that's 12 months. Is that equal to how many years? 1 year, that's right. In 1 year, the earth travels around the sun, and we call that, can you say orbit?
Orbit.
Now, if you live right there in Oklahoma, during that 1 year orbit, you're gonna get all sorts of different types of weather because you're gonna be far away from the sun and you're gonna be real close to the sun. And so it gives us our 4 seasons.
So the sun gives us 2 things. It gives us heat and it gives us light. Think of it like this fireplace. When the earth is traveling, if it's close to the fireplace, like in summertime, you're gonna feel the heat. And if it's far away from the fire, like in wintertime, you're not gonna feel the heat. Besides giving us warmth, the sun gives us light. The dance that the sun is doing with the earth is kind of more complicated than I showed you before. Besides going in an orbit in 1 year, while it's doing that, it's also spinning. So it's spinning around as it orbits the earth. It takes 1 full day for the earth to make 1 circle. It's going to make that circle 300
365 times before it makes one orbit around the sun. Every time that it makes a circle like this, some of the countries face the sun and some of them turn away. That's why we have daytime and nighttime. Now, during the seasons, you might have noticed that we get different amounts of light, and this is why. If this is the sun, and this is Oklahoma right here, if Oklahoma is way over here and it turns away from the sun, it is getting nighttime. It is nighttime until it turns back towards the sun. Now, sometimes when it's winter time, when it's way far away from the sun, Oklahoma turns its back on the sun for a lot longer than it does in the summertime. So, Oklahoma in the wintertime is so far away from the sun, and funny thing about the earth, it's actually crooked, it's tilted, so when it's way out here and it's spinning around, it just turns its back on the sun for so long every night. That's why we have fewer hours of sunlight in the winter. In the summertime, the earth is tilted towards the sun, and it's very close to the sun. And so you will wake up and see the sun first thing, and you'll go play outside in the sunshine, and you'll eat lunch and it'll be sunny, and you'll go swimming and it'll be sunny, and you'll have some popsicles outside and it'll be sunny, and it'll be time for dinner and it'll still be sunny. And after dinner, you have plenty of time to go play basketball in the driveway and it'll still be sunny. Oklahoma will not turn its back on the sun until after 9 o'clock at night during the summer months. Now, during the fall months and the spring months, you get equal amounts of sunlight and daylight. So you get 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of light.
We call the first day of spring, which is March 21st, and the first day of fall, which is September 21st, the spring and autumnal equinox. Equa means equal, and nox means night. So it means we have equal nighttime hours and daytime hours.
So, when the Earth is over here in the orbit or over here in the orbit, it's getting equal amounts of nighttime and daytime.
But on the first day of winter, which is December 21st, and on the first day of summer, which is June 21st, we call that the winter and the summer solstice. Sol meaning sun, like sol in Spanish means sun, meaning we get a lot of the sun or we get just a little bit of the sun.
Which means you're getting a lot less or a lot more light and a lot less or a lot more heat.
How does the different amounts of light affect humans that live in Oklahoma? Well, first of all, in the wintertime, I don't have enough sun or enough heat, so I have to put on my heavy coat. But then, in the springtime after winter, that type of weather brings so much rain because the world is warming up again and plants are starting to grow again, and we need the rain to help the plants grow. So it's rainy. And then we move into the hot days of summer, where we can go swimming again. And then we move back to fall. And I bet you've noticed that the leaves on the trees start to change colors. And you gotta get out your rake, because after they look so pretty, they fall to the ground. And you gotta do a bit of raking in your yard. So that brings me to my second question. How does all this light and heat affect
our plants? Well, if you've noticed, during the spring and the summer, the leaves on these trees are all green. And that's because these leaves are the kitchen of the plants. These leaves actually make the food for the plant because the plant can't walk on into the kitchen and make mac and cheese for itself. It has to make its own food, and it does it right here. And it uses a couple of special ingredients. Number one, it uses air. Number two, it uses water.
Water.
Number three, it uses the sun. Mix it all up, and you get a plant's food, which actually is green. And this plant turns green. It turns the color of its food. That would be like if I ate so many carrots that I turned orange. What happens is, when the earth starts to move away from the sun, there's not enough of the sun ingredient to make the food. There's air, there's water, but there's no sun. They cannot make their food anymore. And so these leaves turn from green back to their normal color, which this tree, the Oklahoma redbud, happens to be yellow. Eventually, if it's not making food, this is going to die, and that is why they drop off the leaf, off the branch, and
we
float to the
can't
ground.
swim.
No more swimming. It's a little bit less, it's not hot enough. So, once these leaves have all dropped, the plant's not dead. It just goes to sleep for the winter time. And then it'll come back in the spring when all that rain comes back for the water. And it'll start making its food again. Can you imagine what it must have been like before scientists knew that the earth was traveling around the sun and that it was spinning while it did that? That all they knew was that it started getting darker and it started getting colder during certain times of the year. And they didn't know why. And it was scary.
They watched in fear as the leaves on the trees died and fell to the ground, and they watched in horror as all of their food started freezing on the vines. And so they did whatever they thought they could to save themselves. They lit fires and danced around them, and they chanted and they sang songs, and they thought maybe that the warmth and the light of the fire would bring the sun back. And then finally, on the first day of spring, the sun did return. They thought they had done it with the dancing, and so they crossed their fingers and hoped that their dances would be just as good again next spring. But then, scientists to the rescue! We have our first astronomers. Those are scientists that study the sky. They'd look through telescopes, they'd observe the sun, the moon, and how they move throughout the sky. And then, most importantly, they wrote down what they saw and started sharing it with others. Those others wanted to prove what they had found out was true, so they built things like sundials and temples with special windows that would allow the sunlight only through those windows at certain times so that they could measure and track the sun's journey. They even built this cool dome-shaped structure where only once a year does the sun shine directly through the door like this. On the winter solstice, people gather to see that beautiful light. Maybe you've heard of this one, Stonehenge. Stonehenge also measures the sun and the shadows, and it told the people that they did not need to worry. The sun would be returning. It showed them there was a pattern. There was no need to be scared. The earth was spinning. It was moving around the sun, closer and farther away, but the sun would always return to them with its warmth and light. And so people stopped feeling fearful and began celebrating. In some countries, they light candles and wear them as a crown. to represent the warmth and the light that the sun will bring in the spring. Other people bring evergreen boughs inside to decorate their homes, reminding them of the trees that never lose their leaves no matter how far away the sun is. Winter is no longer a time to feel fearful. It is a time to feel hopeful and to celebrate that the sun will return with all of its light and warmth. So their scientific journey started with a lot of fear and many, many questions.
But the more that they started observing and studying the earth and the sun, the more they knew and the less scared they were. That's really important for everything in your life, not just the 4 seasons, but anything that might scare you. Maybe you just need to try to learn a little bit more about what scares you. Maybe that will help you feel a little less scared about the changes in your life. So we know that Oklahoma experiences 4 different seasons because of its position on the earth. But what if you lived at the top of the earth or the bottom of the earth?
The North and South poles are truly the ends of the earth. Their position on our little crooked tilted globe makes it really hard for them to get a nice balance of light and heat. They're either bathing in buckets of sun all day long, even at midnight, or they're completely ignoring the sun, even in the middle of the afternoon. Look closely at the North Pole in this picture. It's at the tip top of the earth, right where that stick is coming out of the top. That stick is called the axis, by the way. Each of these globes represents Earth's position during a different season. So take a look at the North Pole on the right side. It's winter in the North Pole. Santa's getting ready for his holiday. No wonder he needs a reindeer with a flashlight nose because it looks awfully dark up there. In fact, this is what straight up noon looks like during the winter months in the North Pole. That's as much of the sun as it's going to see. Let's take another look at the North Pole on the opposite side. When the Earth has traveled around its orbit to the left side. Now it's summer. Look at how bright and sunny it is now. It's so sunny, you would still need sunglasses at midnight. Yes, this is a picture of midnight in the North Pole. The sun never goes away. It's the opposite for the South Pole. Winter in the south is bathed in midnight sun, and summers there are so dark. The North and the South Poles don't experience the seasons like we do. It's like they have only 2 seasons, dark and sunny. I'm thankful to live in Oklahoma. I kind of like our 4 very different seasons.
Never stop exploring and observing the world around you. Not only will it help you gain knowledge, but it will help you feel less fearful. So, in conclusion, we have 4 seasons because the earth travels around the sun. It takes 1 year to do that, and in Oklahoma, during that year, we feel very different during summer, fall, winter, and spring. So enjoy the season that we're in now because it'll change soon. Have a great week. Bye, Global Gardeners. That was fun, learning science and exploring the world around you. I hope you enjoyed Global Gardens as much as I did. And now we're going to end our lesson by doing something that we call appreciations. To appreciate something means to feel thankful for something. So take a moment to think of anything that makes you feel thankful. I'm thankful for my cat. I'm going to take that thankfulness and hold it inside of me so that I can finish my day with happiness. And I want you to do the same. It can be something simple. Maybe you got to eat your favorite food today, or maybe you're going to see somebody that you love this afternoon. Take a moment, think of it, hold it in your mind and your heart. Okay, fill yourself with happiness and go out there and keep learning.
Hi, friends. Today we're going to be reading a book called The Reason for the Seasons by Ellie Peterson. Does anybody know what this is? It's like a bulletin board with all sorts of pictures of our main character in it. It says June family barbecue, April puddle stomp, science project, May flowers, Valentine's Day party, Pie Day, and January sledding trip. I wonder what this picture is supposed to tell us about our character. The Reason for the Seasons, illustrated and written by Ellie Peterson. The seasons. I'll bet you know all about them. How many there are, what they're called, when they occur. You might even have a favorite. But do you know what causes the seasons in the first place? Look at the top, it says winter, spring, summer, fall. What season are we in right now? Perhaps you think it's the Earth is closer to the sun in summer and farther away from the sun in winter. After all, you're usually warmer when you're closer to the source of heat. This little blurb at the bottom says, the sun is much larger than shown here and much farther away from Earth. If the Earth was this size, the sun would be the size of a bus, and it would be 8 football fields away. Unfortunately, we can't show you the actual size of the sun because this book isn't that big, or your computer screen, or your TV at home. If we had summer because Earth was closer to the sun during those months, then our whole planet would have summer at the same time. But it doesn't. When it's cold and snowy in the northern hemisphere, it's downright balmy in the southern hemisphere. They have opposite seasons. So this little character at the top says, hello, Julia, having a nice sunny day, sweetie? Or our grandma says that. And then Julia says, not exactly, Grandma. Because it looks like it's cold down at the bottom, or it's cold at the top and warm at the bottom. This little blurb at the right says the imaginary line across the middle of the Earth is called the equator. The part of the planet north of it is called the northern hemisphere, and the part south of it is the southern hemisphere. In fact, the Earth is slightly closer to the sun in January and slightly farther away from the sun in July. That means that in the northern hemisphere, Earth is closest to the sun in winter. Seems strange, but it's true. Or maybe you think we have seasons because the Earth rotates. It moves around and around. It would seem to make sense that the side that faces the sun has summer and the side that doesn't face the sun has winter. We often connect light with warm and dark with cold. This little blurb at the bottom says, in order to complete one rotation in 24 hours, the Earth spins 1,000 miles per hour. That's so fast. We don't feel the Earth moving as it rotates because the speed is constant. It's always moving. If Earth suddenly stopped moving, we would definitely feel it. But nope, that's not it either. Rotation is actually the cause of day and night. The Earth rotates once every 24 hours. Remember, how fast does it move? 1,000 miles per hour, right? The side of the Earth that faces the sun has day, and the side of the Earth that faces away from the sun has night. If rotation were the cause of the seasons, we'd have all 4 seasons in one single day. That's funny. So look at this clock that she has up here for 24 hours. That would be kind of funny, huh? If we had all 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall, all in one day. So what is the reason for the season, you ask? It says our planet is tilted. Imagine a pole that passes through the Earth from the north to the south. This is called the Earth's axis. Instead of being straight up and down, it's tipped 23.5 degrees. If Earth wasn't tilted, we wouldn't have any seasons at all. At the bottom, it says, scientists think Earth became tilted when a meteor the size of Mars hit it, way back when our planet was first formed. And it's not just us. Uranus, another planet, is tilted sideways, and Venus is tilted upside down, causing it to spin backwards. So it says that if we didn't have the Earth tilted, if that meteor hadn't hit it, then we wouldn't have any seasons. Earth's tilt affects how directly the light from the sun hits it. For instance, a spotlight puts out a very strong hot light when it shines on you. As you change the angle of the spotlight, the light appears dimmer. The light also feels cooler. This is because the same amount of light has to spread over a larger area. Earth's tilt is also why shadows are different lengths throughout the seasons. They're shortest in summer because the sun is higher in the sky, just like the hot spotlight overhead. The shadow grows a little longer in the fall. Your shadow is longest in the winter because the sun is so low. And then your shadow shortens again in the spring. Wondering what Earth's tilt looks like from space? The northern hemisphere has summer when it is tilted towards the sun, and the sun's light is most direct. At the same time, the southern hemisphere has winter when the sun's light is least direct. When the southern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, it has summer, and the northern hemisphere experiences winter. When you look at the Earth's orbit from the side, it looks like an oval. But from above, looking down on the Earth's North Pole, the orbit appears more like a circle. However, many people mistakenly draw that view from above like an oval, showing the Earth really close at one end and far away at the other. This incorrect drawing has led many people to believe that summer occurs when the Earth is closest to the sun instead of when the rays of light are most direct. If you see on the right, it's got all of the different months there that it wants to show you, how the Earth is tilted in June, September, December, and March. Imagine a world where the sun never sets. The Arctic Circle is known as the land of the midnight sun for this very reason. When the northern hemisphere has summer, the area near the North Pole is tilted so much towards the sun that on certain days it never gets dark. It happens in Alaska, for sure, in America. People who live in the Arctic Circle may go 2 or more months without seeing the sunset. The opposite happens in winter. On certain days, the Arctic Circle gets no direct light at all. It's in 24 hours of darkness, so the sun never comes up. The North and the South Poles experience seasons as well, but they still stay pretty cold because the sun's rays are too indirect to make them much warmer. In another region closer to the equator, remember that invisible line in the middle? The light from the sun is very direct, and there is little change in the amount of energy or light energy all year long. This area is called the tropics, and these countries don't experience big changes in temperature from season to season like the rest of the world, right? So it stays pretty much the same all year long. Scientists drew 2 imaginary lines around the Earth to show where the tropics are located. The line south of the equator is the Tropic of Capricorn. The line north of the equator is the Tropic of Cancer. Throughout our whole history, people have relied on the seasons to mark time and the passing of each year. However, the way they define them is based on where they live and can vary greatly. Many islands and coastal areas have extra seasons like pre-spring and high summer. Areas around the equator have a rainy season and a dry season. The Incas, an ancient civilization that lived south of the equator, identified and based their calendar on 2 seasons, planting and harvest. Well, that makes sense for global gardens too, huh? There are so many ways to think about the seasons, but only one thing that causes them: the tilt of the Earth. Believing that Earth is closer to the sun in the summer is logical and makes sense, but that doesn't make it right. A good scientist always questions what they think and what they know, or what they think that they know. So here it says how to be a scientist, right? It talks about a different experiment that you can do with your flashlight. If you want to watch this, you can go ahead and pause the screen on your computer and read it and try it at home. Okay. Here's another picture of her bulletin board and all of the things that she does in the season. I noticed that it talks about Thanksgiving on here. That's coming up for us really soon. And here's a picture of the author. It says Ellie Peterson is a middle school science teacher by day. So she's a teacher, author and artist by night. And it says, and any time when doodling can occur. She is inspired to teach readers to question how they know what they know. She believes that a good scientist looks at her assumptions or their assumptions before coming to conclusions. Okay, so I want you to think before you're done with your day today. How are you a scientist? What things do you do every day that make you feel like a scientist? Do you explore anything? Have you ever done any experiments? Think about it and maybe write it down in your notebook or draw a picture of you being a scientist.
Summertime, that's when the days get long. That's when the weather's warm. 'Cause we're closest to the sun. Soon it's gonna cool back down. Once October rolls around, all of the leaves start falling down. It's the season of autumn, and next thing you know, winter brings the freezing cold. When you're on a tilted globe, the weather changes at the poles, but just give it time, everything will be alright. All of that snow and ice is gonna melt when spring arrives. Well, I can feel the world moving, it's spinning round and round like a wheel. Can you feel the weather changing as we go through the seasons of the year? Spinning around the sun, traveling round the sun. It takes a year to get around just once, traveling around the sun. Closer in the summer, further in the winter, moving in a sphere with the sun in the middle. Closer in the summer, further in the winter, the weather's always changing 'cause the world is tilted. Yeah! The earth spins on its axis every day that passes, as it revolves around the sun in an elliptical orbit. And all the seasons are just part of the fun when you're traveling round the sun. Yeah, we're traveling round the sun.